Budgeting will not make you wealthy. I know that sounds wrong. I know everything you've ever been told points in the opposite direction, but stay with me for 30 seconds because what I'm about to show you changed the way I think about money completely. Picture this. It's Sunday evening. Someone sits down at the kitchen table, same as they do every Sunday, opens their spreadsheet, tracks the groceries, the commute, the one takeaway they allowed themselves on Friday. Although everything adds up, everything balances. They close the laptop and feel responsible. Then they check their savings account. Nothing moved. Same number as last month, same number as 6 months ago. That feeling, that quiet, confusing frustration where you're doing everything right, but getting nowhere, that is not a discipline problem. That is not a spending problem. That is a measuring problem. And it affects people at every age, of every income, every generation. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly why. Let me introduce you to 4 real situations, different ages, different lives, same invisible wall. Alan is 67. He worked in logistics management for 34 years, never missed a bill. Drove the same car for 9 years because it still worked fine. Cut the Sky subscription in 2015 and never went back. His colleagues thought he was the most sensible person in the office. 2 years into retirement, his financial advisor asked him a simple question. How much is your net worth today versus 10 years ago? Alan couldn't answer it. He had never tracked that number once. Not once in 34 years of careful, disciplined budgeting. Diane is 51. She works in school administration, raises 2 kids, and runs a tighter household than most people, twice her income. She has a spreadsheet that goes back 11 years, color-coded. She knows her average weekly food shop to the penny. She genuinely enjoys the process, the organization, the control it gives her. But last year, her eldest asked her how much the family's assets were worth. Diane realized she'd spent 11 years tracking what money left and had never once asked how much was staying and growing. Jordan is 36. He's a graphic designer, freelance, decent income, not huge, but real. He budgets every month without fail, pays himself a salary, tracks his business expenses. 3 years ago, he decided he was going to buy a flat. He looked at what he'd need, looked at what he'd saved, and couldn't figure out where the last 4 years of careful budgeting had actually gone. The money had been managed perfectly. It just hadn't gone anywhere. Priya is 23. She graduated 18 months ago, started her first proper job, and immediately did everything the personal finance accounts told her to. Downloaded the app, cut the subscriptions, set a monthly budget, £40 a month into an investment account. She is, by any conventional measure, ahead of her peers. But when her older brother asked her what her financial goal was for the next 5 years, she said, save more. Not a number, not an asset, just more. 4 people, 4 completely different lives. And every single one of them is playing the same game, just at a different point on the same road. Here's what none of them were taught. Budgeting is a tool for managing what you spend. It is extraordinarily good at that. It tells you where your money goes. It stops you running out before the end of the month. For millions of people, it is genuinely the difference between chaos and stability. But it was never designed to build wealth. That is not what it does. That is not what it measures. Think about what a budget actually tracks. Outgoings, expenses, the money leaving. It is at its core a system for monitoring money you no longer have. What it doesn't track, what almost no budget template in any app or spreadsheet or finance book ever asks you, is this. How much of your income converted into something that grows? Not saved. Saved money sitting in a current account isn't growing. Not invested. £40 a month is a start, but it's not a strategy if you don't know what percentage of your income it represents and whether that percentage is increasing. The number that actually determines your financial future is not how little you spend. It is how much of what you earn becomes permanent wealth, and nobody teaches that number. Nobody tracks it. Because the entire framework of traditional budgeting was built around a different problem. It was built for scarcity, for getting to the end of the month, for not going into the red. And it solved that problem brilliantly. But most people reading this are not in danger of going into the red. They are in danger of something quieter and slower, spending 20 years being financially responsible and arriving at the other end with almost nothing to show for it. So here's the question nobody asks. If this is such an obvious gap, if budgeting only measures half the picture, why has nobody corrected it? Because the financial services industry profits from people who are managing scarcity, not building wealth. Someone who feels perpetually behind, who is anxious, who is stretching their income, who lives month to month despite trying hard. That person borrows money, pays interest, and buys financial products out of stress, not strategy. They are a consistent, reliable customer. Someone who understands wealth accumulation, who is systematically converting income into appreciating assets, who measures net worth instead of daily spending. That person needs the financial system far less. The schools don't teach asset velocity. The apps don't show you your wealth conversion rate. The financial advice most people get from their parents, their colleagues, their first job. It is almost entirely about spending less, never about building more. This is not a conspiracy. It is simply a system that was never incentivized to ask the right question. And so, generation after generation, the question never gets asked. Alan was never taught it. He taught his kids what he knew. Diane learned it from her parents, who learned it from theirs. Jordan followed every rule he was given. And Priya, who knows more about personal finance at 23 than most people twice her age, is starting her financial life with the same blind spot at the center of it. Here's what changes everything. One question. This week, not next month, of the money you earned this month, what percentage became permanent wealth? Not what percentage did you save? What percentage converted into something that compounds? Something worth more next year than it is today. Write that number down. It might be 2%, it might be 8%, it might be 0. It doesn't matter what it is right now. What matters is that you've now got a number, a real number, one that tells you something a budget never could, because now you're not managing money, you're directing it. And those two things, managing versus directing, are the entire difference between where Alan ended up and where you can still go. Priya has 35 years of compounding ahead of her. The only question is whether she spends them optimizing her grocery bill or increasing that percentage, even by 1% a quarter. The math is not subtle. 4 generations. 4 people doing everything they were taught. The same invisible wall every time. The mistake was never about spending too much. It was about measuring the wrong thing for your whole life. And never realizing there was a different number you were supposed to be watching. You know that now. This week, one thing. Write your wealth conversion rate, even if it's uncomfortable. Especially if it's uncomfortable, because that number is the beginning of an entirely different conversation about money. If this reframed something for you, subscribe. Every week I go deeper into the stuff most personal finance content never touches. Next video. Exactly how to start increasing that number without touching your income. Don't miss it. Don't